You're not classy enough for a table with us, Brenda. Just take that corner seat. My son-in-law, Julian, didn't even look up from his phone when he relegated me to a tiny, drafty table near the kitchen doors. My daughter, Chloe, looked away, too ashamed to speak up. It was supposed to be their anniversary dinner at L'Orangerie, the most exclusive five-star restaurant in the city, a reservation Julian had bragged about for weeks. He thought my simple clothes and modest background made me embarrassment to his image. But what Julian didn't know was why the head chef and the restaurant's owner were whispering in the back, staring directly at our side of the room. When the owner finally walked over to my solitary table and dropped to one knee, Julian's triumphant smile turned to absolute terror. Welcome to BT Revenge Tales. Follow my story until the end, and comment below the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached. My name is Brenda, and at 38 years old, I've learned that true sophistication isn't something you buy off a rack. It's something you carry inside you. But try telling that to my son-in-law, Julian. The moment we stepped through the heavy glass doors of L'Orangerie, Julian checked his reflection in the polished marble, adjusting a designer wristwatch he clearly couldn't afford. He glanced at my simple navy dress and modest coat with outright disgust. My daughter, Chloe, walked beside him, nervously biting her lip. When the maitre d' led us toward a prime window booth overlooking the city skyline, Julian abruptly held up a hand. "Wait," he said, his voice loud enough to draw glances from neighboring tables. "Brenda isn't sitting with us. Put her over there." He pointed toward a tiny, cramped table wedged right beside the swinging kitchen doors. "Julian." Chloe gasped, flushing red. "What are you doing?" "Be practical, Chloe." Julian snapped softly, his cold eyes locked on mine. "This is an exclusive five-star establishment, and I have an image to maintain. Frankly, Brenda, you're just not classy enough for our table. Take the corner seat." I didn't cause a scene. I simply pulled out the small wooden chair by the kitchen doors and sat down, smoothing the fabric of my navy dress. Across the dining room, Julian snapped his fingers at a young waiter, loudly demanding the water menu while bragging to Chloe about his upcoming corporate promotion. He was trying so hard to project wealth, completely unaware of how cheap his behavior actually made him look. Years ago, after my husband passed, I walked away from a high-powered finance career to raise Chloe in a quiet, grounded home. I chose simplicity over status. Julian mistook that choice for poverty. As I ordered a simple chamomile tea, I noticed a sudden shift in the room's energy. Near the kitchen doors, two senior waiters were staring past my shoulder, their eyes wide with shock. The maitre d' pulled out his phone, his hands trembling slightly as he dialed a number while keeping his gaze fixed directly on my solitary table. They weren't looking at Julian. They were looking at me. Julian's laughter boomed across the main dining floor. He had just requested an obscure vintage wine from the cellar, aiming to impress the senior executive sitting at the table beside theirs. When the sommelier politely explained that the bottle was strictly reserved for private collectors, Julian slammed his hand on the linen tablecloth. "Do you know who I am?" he sneered, his voice echoing under the chandelier. "I'm spending thousands here tonight. Call your manager." From my quiet corner, I took a small sip of my tea. Julian caught my eye and let out a cruel snicker, pointing my direction so his neighboring diners could see the cheap relative banished to the back. Suddenly, the heavy double doors near the foyer swung open. A tall man in a bespoke tuxedo stepped into the room, scanning the floor with sharp, urgent intensity. It was Arthur Vance, the owner of the entire restaurant group, and he was walking straight toward us. Julian straightened his tie, puffing out his chest as Arthur Vance approached. He actually extended a hand, assuming the owner was coming over to personally apologize for the wine dispute. Arthur didn't even look at him. He brushed right past Julian's table, leaving his outstretched hand hanging awkwardly in the air. Instead, Arthur walked straight to my cramped corner near the kitchen doors. To the absolute shock of every diner in the room, the powerful restaurant mogul bowed his head with deep respect and dropped down onto one knee beside my small table. "Mrs. Hayes," Arthur said, his voice warm and genuinely honored. "I had no idea you were dining with us tonight. Why on earth are you sitting in the back?" Julian's jaw practically hit the floor. I didn't want to cause a fuss, Arthur, I replied calmly. 15 years ago, after leaving Wall Street, I had quietly become the majority angel investor behind Arthur's entire hospitality empire. I owned L'Orangerie. Within seconds, 6 waitstaff rushed over, draping my table in gold-embossed linens and bringing out the very vintage wine Julian had just been denied. Arthur stood up, his sharp eyes sweeping over the room before landing directly on Julian. Mrs. Hayes, Arthur asked loudly enough for the surrounding tables to hear. Are these guests troubling you? I can have security escort anyone out who doesn't show proper respect to the person who owns this entire building. The color completely drained from Julian's face. He stumbled out of his chair, nearly knocking over his wine glass. The realization hit him like a freight train. The corporate holding firm he'd been trying to land a contract with was a direct subsidiary of my investment group. Julian stammered, his confident swagger vanishing into pure panic. Brenda, we had no idea. Please come sit at our table. We insist. My daughter, Chloe, covered her mouth in absolute disbelief, staring at her husband's pathetic turnaround. I set down my teacup with a soft clink and looked Julian dead in the eye. No thank you, Julian, I said calmly. I wouldn't want to ruin your image. I'm quite comfortable right here. Julian stood frozen in the middle of the dining room, sweat breaking out across his forehead as Arthur motioned for the head of security to step forward. Arthur, I said quietly, please ensure Julian's corporate firm is removed from our foundation's vendor list first thing tomorrow morning. I don't partner with people who measure human worth by price tags. Julian gasped, trying to step forward to beg, but Arthur blocked his path. For the first time all evening, Chloe looked at her husband, not with fear or anxiety, but with absolute disgust. She slowly unclasped the expensive necklace he had forced her to wear, set it on the white tablecloth, and walked away from his table toward mine. I'm so sorry, Mom, Chloe whispered, her eyes shining with pride as she pulled up a chair beside me. Julian was left standing completely alone under the glare of the room's wealthiest patrons, his arrogance stripped away, leaving nothing but an empty, foolish man. Chloe and I spent the rest of the evening enjoying an extraordinary meal, sharing memories and laughing like we hadn't in years. True sophistication isn't found in designer suits or pretentious titles. It's measured by how you treat the people around you when you think nobody is watching. Julian learned that lesson the hard way, losing both his dignity and his biggest career opportunity in a single night. If you were in my shoes, would you have given Julian a second chance? Or would you have walked away like I did? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to mention which city you're watching from so I can reply to your message. Thank you for watching BT Revenge Tales. Be sure to like, subscribe, and click one of the favorite stories popping up on your screen right now for more incredible tales.